观众朋友您好，我是万若泉。
Good evening, I am Joe Wan. Welcome to Under the Same Sky. Just a few weeks ago, America celebrated the 40th anniversary of the first man on the moon. Almost at the same time, 140 years ago, America was engaging in another epochal undertaking, the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad. Thousands of Chinese workers traveled across the Pacific Ocean to contribute to the seemingly impossible mission. In our previous program, we told the story of the early Chinese who came to California during the gold rush. They were met with waves of anti-Chinese sentiment. Chinese children were not allowed to go to public schools. Chinese exclusion laws came after the construction of the railroad in which Chinese workers had played a significant role. At the 140th anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, we salute those Chinese workers who were truly the unsung heroes. This is Donner Lake along Interstate 80 toward Reno, Nevada. At the Donner Pass, there stands a steel monument buried in weeds. The inscription says 12,000 Chinese laborers worked arduously to complete the Transcontinental Railway.
It's
one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
One real interesting comparison of the Transcontinental Railroad would be comparing it to landing a human on the moon.
The Transcontinental Railroad was like the space shuttle for the time. I mean, it was the uniting East and West Coast.
In 1862, during the Civil War, Congress passed a bill to encourage private investment in railway construction connecting the East to California. The Union Pacific Railroad Company was contracted to build the eastern section starting from Omaha, covering a shorter distance on relatively flat terrain. The western section was contracted to Central Pacific Railroad Company. The railway starts from Sacramento and cuts through hazardous terrain such as mountains and deserts.
In 2 years, they only built 50 miles. So they haven't even reached the Sierras yet. So then the Big Four, that is those were the people who started the railroad, decided, well, Crocker was the one that decided.
Charles Crocker goes, well, you know, these Chinese, they're good for something. And the chief engineer goes, they're not built like white men. They're small, they're scrawny, you know, they're weak, they're too small. And Charles Crocker then says, they built a great wall. They must be good for something.
Because the railroad began building in 1865, but they didn't use Chinese in the beginning. They just were stopped. You know, they lacked labor, and so they started with just like 50 Chinese, and pretty soon they realized the Chinese worked so well.
At the time, among the four railroad giants, Leland Stanford, Collis Huntington, Mark Hopkins, and Charles Crocker, Crocker presided over the project. He recruited workers from California's Chinatowns, and then he contracted hard-working laborers from Guangdong, China.
So as far as they were concerned, Gamsan wasn't anywhere except where they might get the possibility of getting rich. They didn't know it was California. They didn't know but that they were going to end up in the Sierra Nevadas. And the passage were paid, and they were paid to work and being fed and so on. That was better than starving in China. So they took the risk to come to the Golden Mountain. However, once they got there, they didn't realize that it was that kind of work, that tough. I mean, they literally moved mountains,
Toward the mountain, they blasted every mile. They set the charges, never resting all the while. All came from China to escape the strife and war.
到了1865年底，
By the end of 1865, with thousands of Chinese laborers in place, the construction of the western section progressed rapidly.
华工人数甚至高达
In the heydays, there were over 12,000 Chinese workers, accounting for 4/5 of all railroad workers. Crocker proudly claimed that he led an Asiatic contingent of the Grand Army of Civilization. This army faced a tremendous challenge as it moved in toward the Sierra Mountains in Nevada. These Chinese workers had no clue that they literally had to move a mountain after coming to the Gold Mountain.